meeting is October 29th, 2019. Please rise. Here. Thank you, Mrs. Sarah. Dr. Nance, would you like to start with festivities? Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our meeting this evening. Tonight, we are celebrating two teams in our Raider Nation. Mr. Miller, I would like to invite Mr. Miller up to come and introduce our two teams that we're celebrating this evening.
Good evening, everyone. This is a very, very exciting day. And it's exciting because we have two programs that underwent a bit of a transformation this summer. They underwent a transformation because the turnout for both programs was enormous. And it left both coaches wondering, what on earth are we going to do with all of these wonderful athletes who want to participate in our program? And these are the greatest problems you can have as an athletic director. You have to turn around and look at coaches and say, how do we navigate almost 30 gymnasts when most teams in our county are hovering around the 12 to 14 mark? We're at 29 to 28 gymnasts, which is remarkable and outstanding. Our tennis program continues to grow. We were in the same problem where how do we get viable matches for our JV team as well as our varsity team and still continue to develop the talent? And I'm so incredibly proud of the coaching staffs that we have for both of them because they were able to navigate and work through all of the athletes who wanted to come out. I'm proud of the athletes who turned around and took the instruction and continued to move forward. And I'm prouder still of the parents who supported every step of the way. Our tennis program this year won the division or conference for the first time since 1994, which a lot of our kids weren't even born yet. We felt that it was very important to bring them up and honor them. I'm not going to steal too much of what the program did because I'll steal everything Coach Peaty has to say, but the program is led by head coach Luke Peaty and assisted by Coach Barbara Joyner, and I'd like to introduce the girls' tennis program.
All right, thank you very much. It was a really exciting year. We had 33 people try out, and although we have very strong people at the top that I'll mention, what really made this year special is we had so many girls on JV working with Coach Joyner, just pushing them to be able to contribute, wanting to make varsity and wanting to get better. And because of that, we had a good number of people who were playing JV but would come up in even important situations and help the varsity team win matches. So it was really exciting to watch that development, that there were people who had never really played tennis competitively who by the end of the season were winning matches on varsity. In terms of the varsity players, winning the division, the conference, everyone had to contribute at some point. Every single varsity player had a match that was important. If you play the best of 5 matches, there was hardly a match that we would win 5-0. There was always a little bit of a struggle, and because of that, we overcame it. And it was really exciting at the end of the year. How it played out was we had a match that was postponed, and our third singles player, Alexis Chan, she had to come and play 1 set in order to win the conference. She was down 4-3, came back 1 set, we win the conference. It was really amazing. So it was a great year. Also, our first singles player, Anna Shtuka, she was 25-3. She made it to the second day of states, which gets her into the top 32 in the state. The only people she lost to all season were in the top 10 of the state. So as a sophomore, it was really a lot of fun to watch her play. I think everyone understands. So, yes, that's it. All girls come up. Is everyone up here? Come on up.
Whereas the 2019-20 Scotch Plains Family High School Girls Varsity and Junior Varsity Tennis Team had a remarkable 2019 fall season that was led by sophomore Hannah Shuga, who posted an impressive 25-3 record. And whereas the 2019-20 Scotch Plains Family High School Girls Varsity and Junior Varsity Tennis Team closed out September with a 5th place finish in the Union County Tournament at Hubstein Field in Plainfield and advanced to the sectional semifinal match against Chatham. And whereas for the first time since 1994, the Scotch Plains Family High School Girls Varsity and Junior Varsity Tennis Team has earned the conference championship and shall be known as the Mountain Conference Champions. The team concluded the season with a 15-6 win-loss record and compiled a perfect 11-0 record for the Mountain Conference. Whereas the 2019-20 Scotch Plains Family High School Girls Varsity and Junior Varsity Tennis Team exhibited outstanding talent, dedication, and teamwork throughout the season, was led by head coach Luke Petey and assistant coach Barbara Jordan. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Family Board of Education recognizes and congratulates the 2019-20 Scotch Plains Family High School Girls Varsity and Junior Varsity Tennis Team and their coaches for their outstanding achievements and wishes them continued success in their endeavors.
So let's just punctuate it one more time. 11-0 in division play is an outstanding, unbelievable achievement, and to have to do that by coming back and playing on another day because of darkness, and to have the ability to dig deep and say the whole conference rests on this one set, and then to put that one set on one day is even bigger. It's an unbelievable accomplishment that this team had. And forever, you are undefeated in division play. No one can ever take that away from you. Our next program, the gymnastics program, I remember when Coach Sergio came up to me in the summer and she said, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what we're going to do. We might have 30 girls." And we were lucky enough to be able to get an assistant coach this year, which I think helped propel us forward into some more great achievements. The gymnastics program has not won the county since 2003. This is also Coach Sergio's 16th year. So she's going to talk a little bit about all of the 16 and the magic number that is. The team set some records this year and has outperformed everybody in the county, being the Union County champions for 2019. And it's my pleasure to introduce Coach Lisa Sergio and Coach Tara Bozo-Tornek, our gymnastics coaches.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Sergio. This is Tara Bozo-Tornek. This is my 16th season coaching at Scotch Plains Family High School, and this is Coach Tara's first season. I have coined this season very early on as being my Sweet 16, and it is all because this amazing group of gymnasts have come out. They have worked so incredibly hard with their dual practices, both at the high school and their own private gyms, and I couldn't have expected anything more of them. They have surpassed every expectation I had for this season. This was the first time in 16 years that we won the Union County Championship. We also won the Cougar Invitational Tournament. We had multiple individual place winners, specific events, as well as all around at the Cougar Invitational and the Union County Championship. And they're just an all-around wonderful group to work with. Their team spirit and dedication is absolutely unmatched. We came out this year with 28 girls. We were able to get just about everybody in at least 1 to 2 meets. We had a lot of girls who did even more. We lettered about 2/3 of our team, which is pretty incredible to do during our season. And we also ended the season at this point at 10-1, and we still have sectionals to look forward to this coming weekend, as well as potentially states the week after. So I'd like to call up all of my gymnasts. Come on up. Whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Family High School Girls Gymnastics teams has achieved remarkable success throughout the 2019 fall season. The team is anxiously awaiting the state sectional tournament on November 3rd at St. Thomas Aquinas High School. They are proud of the accomplishments of the season, which include earning the Watchung Conference Championship. Whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Family High School Girls Gymnastics team won the Cougar Invitational held at Cranford High School on October 3rd, led by Shaylin Farley, first place all around bars and floor, Elisa Bianco, first place in vault, and Jordana Riceberg, first place in beam, and earned a combined team tournament score of 109.225. On October 3rd, the gymnastics team defeated Summit by earning a school record of a 107.1. Whereas on Friday, October 18th, for the first time since 2003, the Scotch Plains Fanwood High School Girls Gymnastics team earned the Union County Championship with a complete and total team effort. Whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Fanwood High School Girls Gymnastics team exhibited outstanding talent, dedication, teamwork throughout the season, and was led by head coach Lisa Sergio and assistant coach Tara Bozatarnik. This team received well-deserved recognition from fellow students, staff, and the Scotch Plains family communities for their outstanding efforts and accomplishments. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Family Board of Education recognizes and congratulates the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Family High School Girls Gymnastics team and their coaches for their outstanding achievements and wishes them continued success in all their endeavors. Congratulations. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries.
Just in closing on the athletic side, in an era where more and more schools are seeing teams go away, seeing participation fall apart, this community continues to thrive and continues to be one of the strongest athletic programs in Union County, if not northern New Jersey, because of the dedication, talent, and time that our parents and athletes put into their craft. We are larger and stronger than most of our competitors, and we're that because of all of your efforts. So to the parents that continually take your children to and from things and run around ragged and thought that when they got old enough to be in high school you could take a deep breath, and we found out you can't. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. You have made this the best fall that I think we've had here in decades. So congratulations, moms and dads. Thank you, Board of Education. Have a wonderful night.
Also, congratulations to Mr. Miller for his leadership, what he coordinates, and the support that he gives to all of the teams makes our successful seasons possible. So now, I invite students and families to enjoy refreshments, and we will continue our board meeting in the boardroom.
Can I have a motion to take an adjournment until we can reassemble in the Board of Education office next week? Second. All those in favor? Aye. All right, I'd like to call the order back into the public session. We started our meeting in the Evergreen multipurpose room for the certificate in recognition of Plains Family Gymnastics Team and the Union County Champs and the varsity girls tennis team for the win at the Mountain Conference title. We had executive session just before that, and we reviewed the personnel agenda, the HIB report, the legal status report, and the suspension and detention report. We do have additions to the agenda today. We have 3 LET from Melissa Lade Junowich, 4 LET, an email from Anthony Fiore, 5 LET, an email from Emily Gray Voorhees, 3S, field trip, 1 BUS, staff training, and 14 BUS, the Union County Educational Services Commission contract agreement. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Scotch Plains Family Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education offices located at 512 Cedar Street, Scotch Plains, New Jersey. Such notice was provided in written notice and forwarded to the Star Ledger, the Times, the Town Clerk of Scotch Plains, and the Borough Clerk of Family in the revised annual notice of regularly scheduled meetings adopted on August 29, 2019. At this time, we're going to continue our instructional updates with the state testing report. Mr. Monsford will present. I think we need to just first read that now.
Thank you, Dr. Kulikowski. As is our annual event, I am pleased to present to the board this evening the results of last year's spring state tests. This presentation was previewed at the board curriculum committee approximately 2 weeks ago. Special thanks before we begin to Darren Watsky, our supervisor of technology. He is masterful at pivoting in Excel. When I try to pivot, I worry about staying upright. When Darren pivots, we get beautiful graphs that are helpful in interpreting our student data. I also want to thank the administrators who worked hard and continue to work hard to analyze the test data at the school level. Without their insights and dedication, we would not be able to put this data to good use for students, and that, of course, is our ultimate goal. I also want to thank our supervisors. They work together with our principals on instructional and programmatic issues, and together we all work on behalf of the learning of all of our students. Particularly, I'll take a moment to introduce the supervisors who are co-presenting with me tonight. They're seated in the audience, and I'll ask them to just give a wave as I introduce them. Dr. Liz McKenna, Language Arts. Sarah Kelly, Mathematics. Noelle Baxter, Social Studies. Wayne Millett, Fine Arts. And Erin Mullman, Elementary Education. This report is about the results of last year's spring state tests, which were given in the spring. Last year, the state test changed from PARC to NJSLA. NJSLA stands for New Jersey Student Learning Assessment. The tests are statistically equated, so it is valid for us to look at comparisons from year to year. You see the performance levels on the screen. Levels 4 and 5 are passing. In the data slides that you will see coming up, the level colors are similar to what you see here. There's actually a yellow that doesn't show up very well in typing, but you'll get the point. Data are presented as percent of students at each performance level. And finally, it's important to know that the test questions in any one test differ from year to year. And that brings with it variations in the difficulty level of the test from year to year. That's why it's important that we look at our data relative to a norming or comparison group. The data provided for that purpose is the state level data. So we start with last spring's results for our total student population. Here I will begin by going through how the data tables are organized to orient everyone to the format of the graphs. Once you get the schema here, it's the same for the rest of the slides. These are the language arts data for last spring in grades 3 through 8. Each grade level is paired with state results. You see that we included the total number of students at each grade taking each test. I did not include the number of students at the state level, honestly, because it's a 5-digit number and it was too wide to fit in the box. But trust that it is a very large number, and that's what you want for a norming or a comparison group. So when you look at the graphs for each year, you see that the exceeded and the met parts, those are the blue and the green, our performance was higher than the state. And the partial, the red and the orange, we also look for that same upward slant, which in this case means that we have fewer students at those levels. Again, exactly what we want and exactly what we see here. So overall, we are looking for an upward slant from the state's performance level to ours, and you can see that we have that across the board on this slide. Particular observations are the very high met and exceeded levels at grades 7 and 8. We have 85 and 90% passing, and 50% exceeded, and that's approximately 50%. The actual numbers are on the bottom, 48% and 50%. That's quite impressive and significantly better than the state results. In grade 5, I do not see quite the differential that we see in the other grades at the exceeded level. The passing level shows me what I want to see, and the not yet and the partial level also show me what I want to see, but the exceeded is something that we'll keep an eye on as we go through the presentation. Here we move to grades 8 through 11 in language arts. Grade 8 is the same as in the previous slide. It's included here just so you can see the continuity through grade 11. In grades 8, 9, and 10, we see very positive results, better than the state at every level. In grade 11, we had only 23 students taking the test. That's because most students met the graduation requirement prior to grade 11, so the test is only given to those students who need another chance. And you can see that 40%, it's actually 39, my eyeballs tell me about 40, 39% of those students passed. For the rest of the students, those who did not yet pass, that's about 14 students in this population, there are alternate assessments to meet the graduation requirements, and those are worked on during the school year. You will also note that the state did not return data for grade 11, likely because they had so few students taking the test. Now we look at math, starting with grades 3 through 8. We see very positive results here as well, all meeting or exceeding the performance of the state, as we look for that upward slant from left to right for each grade. The only place we don't see that here is at the exceeding level in grade 5. However, the passing rate and the partial and the not yet rates are certainly better than the state. Relative to grade 8, the state gives a test called 8th grade math, which you don't see reported here. The data here are for our 8th graders who took the algebra test.
We do not report results in 8th grade math because only 18 8th graders took it. We do suppress data for confidentiality reasons for groups of students fewer than 20. It's worth taking a closer look here at what the data mean in 8th grade algebra. Here, our Algebra 1 grade 8 bar represents the performance of all of our 8th graders except for 18. That's approximately 96% of our entire 8th grade class. And that's notable because algebra in 8th grade is typically considered an acceleration. Here in Scotch Plains Fanwood, we've been providing that level of acceleration to virtually all of our students for a good number of years. And we've been providing it very well, especially when you look at the state's comparison group. So let's take a look at our comparison with the state in 8th grade Algebra 1. Our performance here represents approximately 96% of our students who have been accelerated to take Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Statewide, however, only approximately 34% of 8th graders took the Algebra 1 test. And this would be the percentage in the state that was accelerated to Algebra 1 in 8th grade, presumably the top 34% of students in the state. So we are comparing the performance of almost all of our students to the performance of a select group of only 34% of students in the state. And our students, almost all of them, performed better than that select group. Saying it another way, the performance of almost all of our 8th graders in Algebra 1 was better than the performance of approximately the top third of the students in the state. Here we go on to Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. The Algebra 1 data here are different data than the Algebra 1 data that you saw on the previous slide. This is the set of all students, regardless of grade, who took the Algebra 1 test. Within this population are the 389 students who took the test as 8th graders, which you saw in the previous slide, and 128 high school students. The high school students could have been students who entered our high school from another district. They could have been students who, by virtue of their individualized educational plans, did not take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, or they could have been students who needed to take Algebra 1 a second time. And the same goes for the state population. This is all students statewide who took the algebra test in any grade. So the results here would be expected to be lower than those for 8th graders only, and they are for both the state and for us. Still, though, we did quite a bit better than the state at every level. And similarly for geometry, quite a bit better than the state at every level. In Algebra 2, though, you can see that our performance dipped below that of the state. That might be a result of students figuring out that they've already met the graduation requirement by passing either Algebra 1 or geometry, or it might be something else, or it might be most likely a combination of factors. Now we will look at 3-year cohorts of students. This shows us how the same group of students performed from one year to the next. We will not be looking at high school cohorts because graduation requirements have changed from year to year. And in math, we have students taking a course who are in different grade levels, so the data aren't clean enough to make reasonable interpretations. We will look at last year's 4th graders through 8th graders and see how they did in previous years. And we begin with language arts. These are last year's 4th graders, and the graphs show how they did last year as 4th graders and the year before as 3rd graders. Let's take a look at what's called the N number, this number right here. That's 446 4th graders last year and 435 3rd graders the year before. So just to be clear, we did not go student by student to subtract out students who were new to 4th grade last year or students who left Scotch Plains Fanwood after 3rd grade the previous year. So this is not an exact comparison of the same students. It's our fourth grade students last year compared to our third grade students from the year before. But the numbers are large enough and close enough to each other to allow us to look at the data in a meaningful way. So as we look at our data from third grade to fourth grade, it's from here to here, you can see definite growth. The blue and the green are higher, the red and the orange are lower. But you will also see that the state grew at all performance levels too. So it's difficult to make exact analyses here because the tests vary from year to year. But we can say for this one that it appears that we had even more growth than the state. So if we look here at the amount of growth there and the amount of growth here, it appears that we had even more growth than the state did. And you can see that with the exceeded group. Here is last year's fifth grade. You can see very nice growth from third grade to fourth grade, but fifth grade drops back a bit. So if we look from fourth grade to fifth grade, the state dropped back a bit and exceeded, but we dropped more. All of our performance levels in fifth grade were higher than the state, and that is certainly very good. But from fourth to fifth grade, we see a drop in exceeded, and that caused the total passing rate, the blue plus the green, to drop back a bit too. And here is last year's sixth grade. Again, you see a drop back from fourth grade to fifth grade at the exceeded level, but then we do rebound in grade 6. Here is last year's seventh grade. We do see very nice growth from fifth grade to sixth and from sixth to seventh, and we also see the same impressive results that we saw earlier at grade 7, 85% passing, and it was 48% at the exceeded level. And similarly with last year's 8th grade. Very nice results from grade 6 to grade 7 to grade 8. We did drop back a bit and exceeded at 8th grade from here to here, but with almost 90% passing and 50% at exceeded, these are certainly very impressive results. Now we move on to math. From grade 3 to grade 4, we do see a drop in the exceeded level from here to here, but you also see a similar drop at the state level. The not yet and the partials compare very favorably, as does the passing level. That could just mean that the hard questions were a lot harder from grade 3 to grade 4. Here is last year's 5th grade. We see a bit of a drop in exceeded at grade 4, but the state dropped too. Could be those hard questions again. Moving on to 5th grade, the percent of students passing dropped back a bit from the previous year, but was still higher than the state, and the exceeded dropped just below the state, 10% versus 11%. Here we see the same drop in the exceeded level at grade 5, but otherwise nice results. Here again, we see growth from grade 5 to grade 6 to grade 7, with fewer students at partial and not yet. And here we see positive results for grades 6, 7, and 8, with 8th grade Algebra 1 representing almost all of our students and their performance being even better than approximately the top third of 8th graders statewide. Let's return to some successes and some challenges that we've seen in previous slides. These will be 4-year longitudinal studies. So this time we are looking at the same grade level test taken by different cohorts of students over 4 years. Here we have grade 5 math over the past 4 years. You see that in 2016, we had nice results. We did better than the state at all performance levels. In the next 3 years, partial and not yet remained about the same, and each year was better than the state. But the exceeded rate dropped a bit from 2016 to 2017, and it pretty much stayed there. So that's an area we will look into. By contrast, here is grade 7 math. We have consistently very nice results across the board at all performance levels. And even though the passing rate hovers at about 70%, and we have seen others at about 90%, you can see overall how much difficulty the state has had with the passing rate. Theirs is about 40%. So that's an indicator that this test is experienced as being more difficult than some of the other tests, and we continue to do consistently well relative to our norming group. Algebra 2, as you can see by the red at the state level, these are the state level results, has been a challenge statewide. We've been able to maintain about a 50% passing level. That's there. But in the last year, the state saw big gains in passing. So from, where am I going here? Okay, here we go. The state saw big gains in passing. So last year we went from just under 30% to, it looks like about 55%. But we did not experience the same gains. We stayed about the same. We also saw a drop in our exceeded, and we are working in this area to take a look at that. Finally, for this section, we have 2 more successes. Here is grade 7 English Language Arts. We have consistently excellent results relative to the state last year with 85% passing and almost 50%, sorry, that's 48% at exceeded. And similarly here in grade 8 Language Arts, impressive results with almost 90% passing and 50% exceeded last year, and growth since last year. The previous results that you saw were for our total population of students taking each test. Now we look at disaggregated results. These are language arts results for subgroups of students. These subgroups are identified by the state. First, we look at subgroups by ethnicity. This is grades 3, 4, and 5 in language arts. In these charts, we include the N number for each. That's the number right here, all the way through. When there are fewer than 20 students, results are suppressed, as I mentioned before, for confidentiality purposes, and that's consistent with the practices of the state. Here we have grades 6, 7, and 8. And here we have grades 9 and 10. You can see that we have too few students taking the 11th grade test to report. Overall, in the ethnic designations, the performance of our African American students and our Hispanic students as groups tends to be lower than the performance of our white students. Our purpose, of course, is to close achievement gaps for all groups and for all students. And we will look at some ways that we are working to do this. Here we're looking at special education designation. IEP, yes, is our population of students who have an IEP. They are special education students. IEP, no, is the remainder of our students who do not have an IEP and are not in special education. While we maintain high standards for all students, including our students with IEPs, it is still reasonable to expect that students with IEPs as a group do not perform as well as students without IEPs. And that is what you see here. Here we have results for students who are economically disadvantaged and those who are not. In many cases, data had to be suppressed, but we can see a comparison in grades 4, 5, and 6. As a group, you can see that the students who are economically disadvantaged did not perform as well as students who are not. And now we look at the same subgroups, this time for math. Here we have the disaggregation based on ethnicity in math for grades 3, 4, and 5. This is grades 6, 7, and 8. And in grade 8, these results include all grade 8 students, those taking the Algebra 1 test and those taking the grade 8 math test. And now for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, irrespective of the grade of the students. In particular, the Algebra 1 data set includes 8th graders as well as students from the high school. And here is the special education disaggregation. Grade 8, again, includes all grade 8 students. Both Algebra 1 and Math 8 test takers. Algebra 1 includes all Algebra 1 test takers, regardless of the grade, 8th graders, and high school students as well. And the disaggregation for economically disadvantaged. Again, grade 8 includes all grade 8 students, both Algebra 1 and Math 8 test takers, and Algebra 1 includes Algebra 1 test takers, both 8th grade and high school students. We also report on dynamic learning maps, referred to as the DLMs. These are alternative assessments designed for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. They are required. Science was given for the first time last spring, in addition to language arts and math, which had previously been given. Here are last year's results. Students passed the test by scoring either target or advanced. We are also required to administer a test for our English language learners, those students whose first language is not English and who have not yet demonstrated proficiency in academic English. The test is required. It is administered annually to all students in the ESL program, and it includes components in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. 51 students took the test last year. Of those 51, 12 students reached a passing score of 4.5, which qualifies them to exit the ESL program. The most important part of any data analysis is what we do with the data. So let's take a look at some summary observations, and then we will discuss how the data are informing our actions. The first two bullets summarize our performance this past year relative to the state. In every test, both language arts and math, with one exception, we scored better than the state at all performance levels. That means we had a higher percentage meeting or exceeding standards and a lower percentage not yet meeting or partially meeting standards. The one exception was Algebra 2. We had particularly impressive results in 7th and 8th grade language arts, with 85% and 89% meeting expectations and 48% and 50% exceeding expectations. And our 8th grade Algebra 1 results continue to be impressive. Our near total student population did better than approximately the top third of students statewide, and that's in what is seen usually as an accelerated course. I am also pleased to note that in addition to being academically impressive, it's also impressive for its equity. Not many districts are able to offer Algebra 1 for all 8th grade students, and we have been able to do that quite successfully for a good number of years. The two areas that we are looking closely at are Algebra 2, which dipped below the state performance, and 5th grade, which is an opportunity to excel at the level of exceeding expectations. And now I will introduce to you Dr. Liz McKenna, Supervisor of Language Arts, and Ms. Sarah Cayley, Supervisor of Math, who will speak to our targeted actions in those areas.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Liz McKenna. I'm the Language Arts Supervisor at K-12. And I thought we'd start by first talking about some of our successes and where we think they might have come from and how we plan to grow that model, and then talk about some of the wonderings that we have based on this year's data and the steps we've already taken and will continue to take to improve, hopefully, those results. So, as Regina said, our 7th and 8th grade scores were particularly impressive, and we attribute this to work that we've been doing as a group. We, as language arts teachers, have really been focusing on increasing choice for students to improve engagement. We've been talking about increasing the diversity of our titles so that students can see themselves represented in the books that they're reading. And we've talked about ways to engage students in authentic experiences that then help them become independent readers and writers. We really started that model in the 7th grade. Those teachers were the first ones to adopt a reading workshop. And if you've been here a while, you've heard me year after year talk about how great our 7th grade results are. And we're finally starting to spread that model to the 8th grade and the 6th grade. And we're seeing the fruits of that as the 8th grade scores improve. So we're really excited about that because we think that that really is a model that we can continue to grow both up and down into the high school and then down into the elementary schools as well when we adopt the reading workshop model next year. As Regina pointed out, our wonderings focus a lot on 5th grade. In particular, we've been taking a look in language arts at the 5th grade results for the last few years because they haven't quite been as rapidly growing as we would have hoped them to. And one of the things that we noticed was our previous curricular program, Good Habits, Great Readers, and Good Habits, Great Readers Writing, didn't quite ramp up the rigor in a way that we wanted it to. So one of the things that informed our decision to adopt the writing workshop model in the 5th grade was the lack of rigor in what we saw in the 5th grade program. So we're hoping that this year being the first year of implementation, we'll start to see the fruits of that labor as well. So those are some of the things that are on the plate for language arts. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah, who will tell you about all of the wonderful things that are going on in math.
Thank you.
I can just use my teacher voice.
So similar to what Dr. McKenna said, I'm going to start by highlighting some of the evidence we have to celebrate from the data and the test results. So for one thing, I want to start by just saying we're seeing some positive results from a lesson study that was implemented in 2017-2018. A group of elementary teachers in grades 2 through 4 really took some time to focus on students being able to express their understanding of fractions in multiple ways beyond just merely memorizing rules. And in response to that, we're seeing that in the area of number and operations in fractions, in all of the elementary tested grades, we're excelling well above the level of the state. Oh, it's working now. Hey, 7. Can you hear me and all of my math better now? In addition, we're also seeing that our students are excelling in areas where they have to provide written justifications or a critique of reasoning, perform with precision in their mathematical statements, as well as in areas where they have to apply concepts in a real-world context. In every test, our students performed above the state in those specific question types, but we had particularly strong results in grades 6th grade and in geometry. And so in looking for certain areas where we can possibly look to make things even better, we're going to focus on those grades as a building block for that. I also just feel it's important to reiterate what Regina has already said about our 8th grade students and the fact that we are able to offer Algebra 1 to almost all of our students in 8th grade, and they still manage to do much better than the state, where they are being compared to the top third of all students in grade 8. That being said, it certainly does also provide us some areas of wonderings and things that we can do as far as next steps. We're going to continue, administrators, teachers, to work collaboratively to make curricular and instructional progress that ensure all of our programs are aligned to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. Part of that process will be, particularly at the high school level, making an effort to make sure we're spiraling our content in a purposeful way. We want to make sure that it remains meaningful to our students and also delivers it in a way that allows them to engage deeply with the mathematical concepts. We don't want to spiral just for spiraling's sake. We're also going to continue to build on the enrichment and basic skills programs that are currently in place and work to make them even better. And then finally, we're going to continue our efforts in developing a culture that fosters an enthusiastic culture in our buildings and also provides students the opportunity to work with particularly challenging math questions and develop a resilience in working with those problems and maximizes the student interest in mathematics.
Thank you, Liz and Sarah. Beyond language arts and math per se, Scotch Plains-Fanwood is a district that is committed to providing a culturally responsive learning environment that supports every student in meeting high expectations and high standards for success. To that end, we are working on increasing diversity in our learning materials and experiences and in supporting our at-risk students. And I will introduce to you again Dr. McKenna and also Mr. Wayne Millett, Ms. Noelle Baxter, and Ms. Erin Mullman, who will speak to us some of those efforts.
Hello again. Now everyone can hear me, I think. So as I said before, one of the goals of the language arts program in the last several years has been to increase the diversity of titles that we offer for students. And we do that because literature is often seen as a window into another world, but it's also really important that students see literature as a mirror of their own experiences. Because we know that when students see literature in that way, they become more engaged readers, which ultimately is going to improve their whole life, but also how they do on standardized tests. So we really want to make sure that students can see themselves in our classroom curriculum as well as in our classroom libraries and in our media centers. And in addition, we're talking about increasing opportunities for student choice in reading, because we know that when students can choose what they're reading, they tend to like reading more, and that tends to make them read more, and that tends to make them better readers. So we know that all of these things are going to increase their reading stamina, their reading ability, and most importantly, their reading independence, which will allow them to flourish in school, on tests, and in the world. So that is how language arts is going to help to support our entire student body.
Thank you very much, Dr. McKenna. So as they were saying, we also believe that the fine arts, as far as art and music, can play a vital role in encouraging our students and inspiring them when they come to school to become better students and to become more engaged in the overall learning process. And one thing that we have definitely involved ourselves in for the last 2 years is making it an intentional effort to really help the students see themselves in the art and the music that they perform. So some things that we have been doing in the Fine Arts Department is that we have become very intentional about every year making sure that the students will find art projects, and they will also use some of the artists that we are studying, that they will be from diverse backgrounds. We want the students to know that all artists and musicians, that they can look like them, they can love like them, and they can sound like them. So it's something that we've really just been intentional about, especially in our elementary levels. We've been making sure that we find a diversity of cultures. And also at our high school levels, we've also been engaging the students in understanding this on a global level, not only in the performances, but also in the outside learning experience, whether it's composers or artists that we are working with. They're getting a chance to see artists that look and sound like them. Thank you.
And in social studies, the work is very similar because, again, we know that student achievement increases when their engagement increases, when they see themselves and they know that they are important to the school community. So in social studies, we have been focusing the last several years on multiple perspectives, global cultures, and understanding the diverse global cultures we have in our own community as well as around the world. We have, over the last couple of years, really focused on understanding not just the cultures that might be different from you, but also your own perspective, your own identity, and your own culture, because we know that when students have a better understanding of themselves, they can make better connections to others. We have also really embraced the theme starting in kindergarten. So even with our youngest learners, we talk about the concept of what we have in common as people and the ways that we're connected to each other, but also the beauty and diversity, that we can be alike and different at the same time, and that's something to be embraced and celebrated. That's a theme that we take all the way up through our high school courses. Again, really through as Liz was mentioning, through diverse text, through providing students with lots of different resources written by people from all different places and all walks of life. We have really looked at specific areas of content where we want to expand the curriculum and increase the diversity of experiences that students are learning about. And again, just a more intentional focus on the concept of perspective. How do I understand my own perspective? How do I understand others? As a way to learn the social studies content, but also become better people and to become more engaged in their school community.
Hi everyone. So in addition to the supports that we have for our entire student body, we do have additional supports for our students who have been identified as in need of additional academic support. So those programs that we provide fall under two umbrellas, the basic skills instruction as well as our Title I programs. So our basic skills instruction includes reading recovery programs, literacy groups, students obtaining success in both language arts and mathematics, and our Reaching, Achieving, Succeeding programs in grade 5 for both language arts and mathematics. We also include Title I programs as a way to support our students who have academic needs. These Title I programs run after school or in the summertime. We have our I-Squared program that is available at our elementary schools who receive Title I funding, as well as our middle school receive Title I funding. We also provide supports to our freshmen through the Freshman Academy program at the high school, which has been a wonderfully received program from both students, parents, and teachers as a way to support the students that are transitioning to the high school and supporting them with their academic needs. We've also had the pleasure of providing summer programs. So we have highlighted two areas where there's transitions from the 4th grade to the 5th grade. We have a summer Stepping Stones program to support students with their academic and social transition to the middle school, as well as the Summer Freshman Academy, which helps students transition to the high school as well. So these programs are in place to support students with their academic needs who have been identified as needing additional support in language arts and mathematics. We use the standardized test scores like the NJSLA as one of our measures, but we also look at a wide range of information and data to select the students who would most benefit from this support. In addition to collaborating with classroom teachers, we also take parents' perspective and their feedback about the programs into consideration as we continuously reflect and update our programs each year. So each year we look at student data, we look at feedback from classroom teachers, from parents, and we find ways to continuously improve these programs so we can make sure that we're meeting students' needs and providing them the best opportunities to increase their learning and their success.
Thank you very much to our supervisors. In addition to the program enhancements and interventions that we've already discussed, it's important to know that we have a clear and strategically placed plan for curricular renewal in math and language arts. As you know, and as was mentioned before, we have begun implementation of writing workshop this year in grades K-5, and the difference that we can already see in children's volume and quality of writing is truly amazing. I do want to thank the board for its support of that effort, and I must commend the teachers and administrators who spent so much time planning this work last year and who are currently working so hard to implement it this year. Professional development is robust, and the instructional model is rigorous and engaging. Next year, as you know, we are already beginning to plan the rollout in reading. And at the same time, we are beginning a 2-year study of our elementary math program, and we plan to be able to reaffirm it, modify it, or change it in 2021-2022. This is an ambitious plan, and it's a well-paced plan. It is how we keep our program of studies vibrant and alive for our students, and how we ensure that we are setting in place the best learning practices for all students. That said, it's a plan. If there is good reason to, plans may shift. And if they shift, they would shift based on continuous monitoring of programs and with care and concern for students first and for staff. Our purpose is not to get the test scores up if it means educating the love of learning out of our kids. The test scores presented tonight are but one score on one day. What matters most is continuous, ongoing, and meaningful learning that answers to a higher authority than test scores. Our purpose is to provide a rigorous and engaging program of studies for all students with robust educational, behavioral, and culturally inclusive supports. Young Zhao and we are keenly aware of the potential unintended consequences of programs and procedures that aim to raise test scores. It is my hope, on behalf of all Scotch Plains Fanwood students, that we never go to a place that lifts scores while teaching children that learning is rote or mechanistic. We will always consider our larger purpose, a meaningful and joyful education for every student that lifts every child to the highest level of academic achievement and that teaches them to be lifelong learners. If we do that, then the test scores will take care of themselves. And that is the end of a rather lengthy presentation. The floor is open for questions from the board. Sorry.
Can you do the lights in the back? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Regina, and all the supervisors who presented this evening. Yes, it was a lengthy report, but it was a very visual, and thank you for presenting the data in such a meaningful way so that we can see how we are exceeding the state standards. I did notice that some of the later charts that you had, that the Asian students, then followed by the Hispanic students, were going in order, and that the white students were not the next highest. They were not indeed. In fact, sometimes they were tied with or below the Hispanic students.
Yes. And that is certainly an observation to make. It is difficult to make conclusions when the numbers of students are on the smaller end. So if we looked at the number of students, we are really looking at small populations. Nevertheless, we look at the aggregated small populations to see if there are any trends that we should address.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions for Regina or any of the supervisors? Mrs. Bauer?
Well, we, those of us on the curriculum committee, had a chance to hear this in detail and ask questions, but I wondered if some among the supervisors might speak to the fact that while this is a global overview, the teachers are thinking about individual students, are eager to see how the students they work so hard with have done, so that they're digging into the data in a different way than we're looking at it district-wide.
So obviously, all teachers want to know how their students from last year did on the assessment pretty early in the year. And so what we do in language arts, and I know what math does as well, is teachers not only take a look at individual students' performance, but we also look at something called the evidence statements, which is a standards-aligned report about how individual standards were addressed on the assessment and how we performed on those standards based on the New Jersey state performance. So it really helps the teachers to think about what have we added maybe into the curriculum or into our instruction that has really paid off, or where are some spots where maybe we could address a skill or a standard in a different way or readdress it at different points in the year. And then the other thing that we do is we take a close look at
scores of our current students, so that we think about who are our students who maybe were on the cusp of that 5 or on the cusp of that 4 that we can help to lift, and those students who maybe are performing at a lower rate than we'd like, how can we help to support them as well? So individual teachers at the building level in the elementary school and in the department level in the secondary level really do take a look not only at how their students performed last year so they can have a reflection of what worked, what didn't work, but also where their students are standing as they come into the year so that they can have a sense of how they should approach their instruction. And we do that fairly early on in the year so that teachers can really have that data and arm themselves with it for the whole year.
I just wanted to point that out because I think we owe a lot of thanks to the supervisors and obviously the teachers who are working with the data in an ongoing way, and we appreciate that. But we also appreciate everything that you talked about that's not just English and math, but throughout the curriculum. So,
thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Anyone else?
Certainly, presenting the district testing report is a huge endeavor, and to make that analysis meaningful to our teachers so it helps in the continuous improvement of instruction is a huge benefit. And I would like to thank Regina for working so hard to make it so clear and a usable tool as we bring it back to our teachers. And I also really appreciate how it does go beyond the math and language arts, that we know engaging students will improve their overall experience at school, and if they're engaged and having a good experience, that the standardized test scores will take care of themselves. So thank you all for your hard work on this.
Thank you. Before we go into our public, there are the seats that we were sitting in, they're open. There are 4 seats. So if anybody would like to sit there, the reserved portion of our program is over. I would just like to make a statement before we go to our public session. On behalf of myself and the entire Board of Education, I'd like to thank you all for coming out this evening to discuss the bus routes of the T5 and T6. We'd like to let you know that safety of our students is taken very seriously. The busing was originally provided to the T5 and T6 routes because there were safety concerns around the back path at Terrell. And since the back path has been resurfaced and is now deemed safe and a clear walkway for our children, the New Jersey Department of Education has verified that the mileage that we report to them has to be based on using the back path as an accessible entrance to Terrell Middle School. To be clear, the guidelines that this district uses to measure the distance for those students who are eligible or ineligible for busing has not changed. Our district policy is informed by the New Jersey Department of Education guidelines, which states all public elementary school students who live more than 2 miles from their school are entitled to transportation. This decision to remove the T5 and T6 bus routes resulted from using exactly the same criteria that has always been used. Thankfully, what your feedback has given us is an opportunity to take a holistic view of the entire busing program and to ensure that all of our transportation practices continue to be fair and reasonable for all of our students. Tonight, the Board of Education members and the administration will be listening to your concerns and guide our review. In the spring, we will report out on our findings. Thank you for your continued support of our schools, and we are always looking out for the safety of our students.
I would just like to add one additional clarification to our transportation. Annually, the Transportation Department, under Mrs. Saradaki's leadership, submits this report called the DRTRS, which is the District Report of Transported Resident Students. This report requires including the distance traveled for each student from home to school. And that's why the distances were reevaluated. So it wasn't a random change. It was that it was in the annual report, including the path, changed the numbers and thus the access to busing. So it's just part of our typical process in determining who gets busing and who does not.
Thank you, Dr. Mast. So in accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools Bylaw 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments, maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing the superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. If you approach the podium, please clearly state your name and your address and the town in which you reside.
Madam President, if I may, since we have
yes.
so many new faces in the audience today that, as compared to most meetings, if I could just elaborate on some of the rules of public comment. Thank you, Madam President. So, as the board president just said, that every speaker is limited to 3 minutes. This is important, not just because the board has other matters to get to, but also keeping to your 3 minutes is important to show respect to your neighbors who are here and might also want to speak. In addition to that, I do want to point a couple things just in terms of process, that after you come to the mic, say your name, address, and what town you live in. I will be timing each person to keep to the 3 minutes. When you hear the buzzer go off, the board's pretty lenient. Please don't feel that we're going to come up there and pull you away from the mic. But again, to show respect to your neighbors, just try to wrap up your thought that you're on when the timer goes off. A couple things to keep in mind as well, that the reason why the section of the meeting is called public comment, that is what's required by the state law. It is time for your comments. Often when people come to the board meetings, they do have many questions. You are certainly allowed to ask questions, but I just want to make everybody aware that the board is not actually required to answer those questions. Often they do. But in terms of how that goes, because your time is limited, please make whatever comments you're going to make, ask whatever questions you're going to ask of the board. If the board is going to respond, they're going to wait until you're completely done with your comments, right? That prevents the back and forth, and it keeps the timing a lot easier to do. Also, one more thing in terms of procedures, if you do have questions, please direct them to the board president. She's the chair of the meeting, not to individual board members or to administrators. Again, that's just the rules of the board and how the meeting goes. That's all I have, Madam President.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
So that being said, is there anybody that wishes to approach the podium?
I have no questions. I have comments.
Please state your name and your address.
I will state my name. My name is Anthony Fiore, and I reside in Scotch Plains on the Westfield border.
Can you please state your whole address?
2261 Newark Avenue, Scotch Plains.
2261
Newark Avenue.
Thank you.
I want to thank Dr. Mass for her decision to evaluate the termination of busing for routes T5 and 6 for Terrell students. I welcome the chance to speak in this open forum tonight. My daughter is 9 years old and will attend TMS next year. By taking away busing for students over 2 miles, you are asking her to walk 45 minutes in each direction along busy streets, many of which will have no sidewalks or crossing guards. Hopefully, you will all have a chance to try the walk with a heavy backpack, lunchbox, full water bottle, and musical instrument in poor weather. The reevaluation doesn't change the fact that the BOE is still trying to use the TMS back path as a viable option to skirt New Jersey code. As a parent and taxpayer, we have a right to know the process for evaluation and reevaluation, and this omission remains both suspect and alarming. The cost of keeping children safe while traveling to school is the shared responsibility of our elected BOE officials and our local governments who were left out of this decision. This decision was poorly handled, premature, and misguided. Mayor Smith, who is here tonight, and Mayor Marr were not CC'd on the initial letter and only learned about it through my emails. Sadly, we have had to do our own due diligence while passing it to you as a courtesy. Dr. Mass' letter stated that safety is, quote, her top priority. So let's look at a few of the safety concerns we have raised. The BOE needs to consider the Terrell Safe Routes to School plan prepared in 2016. There were safety recommendations and additions to the report for West Broad, Fenimore, Essex, and all T5 and T6 students are expected to walk. Recommendations were included but not limited to adding sidewalks, curbs, and crosswalks. I also sent you updated images and images of safety issues along the back path. The BOE needs a walkability report on Hetfield, not included in the 2016 report, and the location of several T5 and 6 stops. And the BOE should research the frequency of accidents near where Hetfield meets West Broad Street. The BOE needs to consider that a known sex offender is located just 5-minute drive from the back path. The BOE needs to consider the wildlife in the back area. A coyote was spotted on 2 separate occasions last week, and earlier this month, TMS emailed that a teacher immediately brought his class back into the building when a coyote was spotted. The BOE needs to consider that the already heavy traffic along Terrell Road and the back path at pickup and drop-off. The BOE has neglected to contact the Evangel Church about their plan and the added cars. Lastly, the BOE has neglected to consider the additional cars and traffic added by the Parker Gardens project. Mayor Smith and Chief Conley shared thoughts last night at the zoning board meeting, and to the benefit of many of us here tonight. If busing is eliminated for these students, it needs to be after the BOE and our municipalities look at the safety and traffic together. This seems to have been a hasty decision made by an outgoing superintendent in conjunction with the policy committee and the business office while leaving out our municipalities. Dr. Mast, it is now up to you to reevaluate, work with our municipalities, and restore T5 and T6 busing to the students of TMS. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore.
Good evening. My name is Janine Scott, and I reside at 2260 Jersey Avenue in Scotch Plains. Tonight I'm here to talk to you about the morning of October 24th when I took a walk from my front door to the front door of Terrell Middle School. The walk and that took me approximately 38 minutes. And again, I am an adult. My son Sean is a 5th grader at Terrell Middle School, so this is a walk that I might have to have him do next year if busing is taken away. During my walk and that, I experienced puddles when I was crossing over Elizabeth Ave. I experienced, walkways that, were uneven. Further down on Hetfield Avenue, there is a portion of the sidewalk that is significantly raised, and there is no grass on the left-hand side of it. So if a child was to fall, they can go tumbling right into Hetfield Avenue. Along my way down West Broad and that, I experienced, again, uneven sidewalks. There is actually a concrete wall where a creek goes under that probably came up to just about my hips. So again, the thought of a child maybe wanting to look over the wall and that and could tumble in is a safety concern of mine. The walk also was a little tedious in the fact that I did feel myself and that going, it was a little elevated in spots and that, so like I could just feel like I was getting like a little tired out. When I got to the end of Martine, I had to wait for the light, cross over Martine, and then onto Fenimore. Fenimore and Essex was pretty nonchalant kind of walk, and then I got to the back path of Terrell. From there, I took the whole path down, did not cut across the grass. I used the crosswalk at the back of Terrell to get onto the sidewalk side where the building is, walked all the way around and to the front door. So again, approximately 38 minutes. And I also, the distance of my walk was 2.15 miles from my house. So one of my questions is that, did somebody walk exactly from my house to the front of Terrell, and that because according to the Board of Education, distance is measured by the shortest distance along public roadways or walkways between the entrance to the student's home and the nearest public entrance of the school building. So I am not sure when you were calculating these distances how you could just assume that everybody in the T5, T6 bus route area would be under the 2-mile mark. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Yes, my name is Justin Miller, and I live at 2114 Aldine Ave.
Aldine?
Aldine, yes.
Okay.
And I just wanted to talk about some of the safety concerns about taking away the bus routes. It took quite a bit of a sacrifice for me to be here. I have a newborn baby at home. I have a 1st grader. I also have a 3-year-old. And, we moved into Scotch Plains last year because of the excellent academics. But we also have concerns for the safety of our girls. I work in public schools, and in my district on October 21st, my superintendent had to deal with something that I hope you never have to deal with. There was a 5th grade student who missed her bus, because in our district we provide courtesy busing to all of our elementary school students. And she went on that walk to school. She was hit by a car, thrown 15 to 20 feet, and it was in critical condition. So when I saw what this walk was going to entail, I also flashed back to my experience as a parent this past year when we had that snow day. And I don't know if you remember, the snow came on pretty fast and unexpected, and the school had to make a call for a half day. I drove to pick up my daughter, and I happened to be driving across Martine when the light changed, and I braked in my car. My car skidded right into the intersection, and I can only imagine what would have been happening if my 5th grade daughter, if she was in 5th grade and 10 years old, had been walking there. I think some of the things that when the state put those guidelines there weren't the number of SUVs on the road that you have today. And I think that's why many school districts have really taken a look at their busing and gone inside that 2 miles when there's been safety concerns, when there's been a lack of sidewalks, when there's been issues really with the safety. And I think if safety is really the number one concern of our students, we went in and put those Tier 3 police officers in all the schools, and I think that was a phenomenal step towards safety. But there are far more kids that are in danger walking home from school every day than there is a risk for a school shooting. I mean, if you're just looking at statistics and you're looking at probabilities, I think also the subscription busing becomes a bigger equity issue, because what you're saying then is that the parents that can afford it can have a safe route home for their students, and not the parents that can't. So I think that needs to be considered as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christine Luco. I reside at 1260 Woodside Road.
What town is that?
Scotch Plains.
Thank you.
Been living here for now over 2 years. It took me 6 years to find a home. Because I wanted to look for the best area, the best community that suited my family and as for myself. I cannot say enough about this community. It's filled with extraordinary families that I've met along with my children. It's also a town that is just made up of so many great people, and I feel like our community is why this town is so great. I'm here tonight in hopes to make a difference in the decision of our busing to stay, not only for my kids, but for all the kids along Hetfield Avenue. I was told that there was 2 main reasons why this was happening, and the proposal was for equity and reconstruction of the path. And if it's for the equity, I'm all for expanding the busing. I don't see why. I actually have a friend that lives right off of Shady Lane, and it's cut off before that, so they don't get the busing. But they're right at the corner of it, so they're just as far, and I understand that. The path on inclement weather is still not clear as per pictures taken by others in the community and posting them. The streets my husband and I took a drive on Fenmore and Essex, very narrow. So now we're adding children walking, we're adding more cars and more traffic. There is also no sidewalks there. I have taken a walk for exercise around the areas of where my children will be walking. There are potholes. I've actually tripped and almost fell. So I can only imagine that when the weather becomes bad and icy, what's going to happen. And they're very narrow as well. And the cars, they drive fast. And just God forbid if the kids are fooling around and someone falls into the street, what happens then? What I also would like to know is what happens when the path is closed. It's been closed a couple of times this year due to animal activities. I asked, I received no answer, just things that would be brought to the board. I just feel like there's a lot of holes in this proposal. Us and everybody that's here today, we're just being advocates for our own children. Just curious, maybe some of the people would like to talk to our children and ask their opinion, how it's going to affect them. And has any of the board members, have they taken a walk? Have they went to the last stop and did the walk that our children would be doing? That's about 40 to 45 minutes. And also 90 plus kids that would be losing busing. Have you taken a walk past this weekend when it was a torrential downpour? Some of these kids, they don't have a way of getting to school but by walking. And also what I thought about tonight, who's going to be there for the kids that do the extra activities? I know there's a lot of kids on my block that do homework club and do coding. Well, now they can't do it, maybe because they don't have a ride back. So all I like to say is, lastly, can you honestly tell me that this proposal is the best move for our children, and is it worth their safety? So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Luco.
Hi, my name is Susanna Larmore. I reside at 2282 Elizabeth Avenue. I border the Brookside Nature Trail, which is also on the border of Westfield.
Can you just say your last name again, please?
Yes, Larmore.
Can you please spell it? I can't.
Yes, Larmore.
Thank you.
So first of all, thank you all for your service to our town and to our children. And thank you, Dr. Mast, for sending the letter regarding busing, which told us to, quote, disregard the previous letter from the business office dated October 14th, 2019. Life in 2019 is not what it was 20 to 30 plus years ago, as we know, and we've spoken to a lot of these changes already tonight. Times have changed, and often with change comes a lot of challenges. And I want to thank you for rising to meet a lot of these challenges. We put school resource officers in every school. That's a great challenge that was met to help our ongoing security concerns. Panic buttons. You just did the vestibules in every school to add for added protection and safety for the students and staff. Unfortunately, that is the world we live in. So in the interest of, quote, open and respectful communication, I want to note my overwhelming concern for the safety and security of all of our children in this school district regarding busing. In a phone conversation with Mrs. Saradaki on the afternoon of October 14th, 2019, Mrs. Saradaki explained that the decision to take away T5 and T6 busing service was, quote, not a budget issue, rather, quote, it is about equity. So then let's talk about equity. If you are truly interested in achieving equity, we should first ask ourselves if the groups of children we are comparing to one another have the same variables at play. For example, not just equal distance from their respective schools, but traffic patterns, terrain, types of routes, etc. And if, in fact, the exact variables exist for other groups of children, then you should be working to increase busing service in the school district instead of taking service away from the children and families who are currently receiving this busing service. In this year of 2019, coming into 2020, with the new construction coming to Terrell Road, which is just one example, with an increase of traffic flow and distracted drivers, with ever-increasing security concerns, we should be looking at how we can improve the quality of life for all of our children, not cut services in the name of equity. This is not how we move forward as a school district. This is certainly not how to achieve equity. Working in public education for 26 years, I know there are a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. There are policies that are informed by the state, etc. However, this does not give any of us an excuse to take the easy way out. Public education is a calling. I believe that fully. We are called to serve the families and children of the school districts in which we serve. It is not an easy job, but if we have elected to do the service, then we must do the work. And you have work to do. This busing policy is informed by the state, but it is within our district control. So I urge you to keep the safety and children your top priority, and to quote Dr. Mast in her letter dated 10/22/19, like all of you, the safety of all of our children is my top priority. So let's continue to make that our top priority as we reevaluate this decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Larimore.
Madam President, just to let you know, we have about 1 minute of the 15-minute time frame for this first public comment period.
Okay. Was there anybody else that was going to approach the podium? Okay, there will be 2 other opportunities throughout the evening. Okay, then we'll end the public portion here. And, we'll allow the mayor to take that last minute. Up to 3.
Yeah, I think it's good that the school board is going to reevaluate. And
Just for the record, would you please
Oh,
state
my name
your
is
name?
Alexander Smith, 1451 Martine Avenue, Scotch Plains. I am the mayor of Scotch Plains.
Thank you.
The chief and I and Sergeant Brown and Manager Alexander Al Marabella, we went through the route the other day, and there's certainly challenges there that are going to have to be met. There clearly, you've heard tonight, there are sidewalks that aren't there. We're concerned about how we're going to cross the street, how many crossing guards it's going to take. And then you also heard, last night at the planning board, we did conclude and approve the Parker Garden project, which is going to add cars there. And obviously, a lot of parents are not going to let their children walk that 2 miles. It's kind of going to be a shock, and they're going to show up there with their cars. It is very difficult there now, and we are taking extra steps there to be as safe as we can. And I hope you would take that holistic view as to what is good for the students as well as and the safety. I mean, we in our own minds, while we were riding the route, we're just thinking, well, how would I traverse this area when it's snowing? It's fine that your new path is now clear, but the rest of the roads have to be looked at very carefully. And I encourage you to do that. Police chief and his staff from Scotch Plains are going to be working with you on this, and hopefully we'll come out with a good decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't want to run over your time too much. Ted Conley, Chief of Police with Scotch Plains. Just as the mayor said, we drove the path. We drove every possible route. We even got reported by one of the teachers down there who saw us driving on the bike path. But we do think that there are going to be some challenges. I mean, Parker Gardens is definitely going to be adding traffic to the area, pedestrian, vehicular. We will be, I talked to Dr. Mass on this, we are going to be having open discussions. This is not something that's just going to be made on a whim. Yes, we are going to, if you do move forward with this, we're going to have to add at least 3 crossing guards at a minimum, and we're going to have to check all these sidewalks to make sure they're passable. There will be a considerable cost added to the town, but again, the safety of the students is our priority, as everyone can see with our SLEO officers and just how we have all of our officers in every school, us and family as well, at the beginning of every day, at the end of every day. And we also have them do walkthroughs every day, just to, again, we don't want anything bad to happen to them. So we open discussion, whatever you want, we'll be there for you. We promise the parents here that if that does come about, we will make it as safe as possible. Without a doubt, we'll work any way we can to make it as the best route possible for the kids.
You can be my jacket. I'm happy. Yeah,
Just
that
so the public's
and
aware, if
jacket.
anybody else does want to speak, there are 2 more public comment periods in the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Mrs. Yes. So that ends the first of the 3 public portions of the meeting. At this time, are there any community reports?
I just want to say that we will be working closely with the municipalities and the local law enforcement as we evaluate.
Thank you. From Barbara Wall Gates, asking for an email chain on social media to LET, an email, October 21st, 2019, from John Denning, requesting a copy of the Student Code of Conduct. The request was fulfilled by the Superintendent's Office. 3 LET, an email from October 29th, 2019, from Melissa Lay Ludowich regarding the support of the Terrell Path. Mrs. Sarah Jackie responded. 4 LET, dated October 29th, from Mr. Anthony Fiore regarding zoning board meeting / Parker Gardens. 5 LET dated October 29th from Emily Gray Voorhees concerning the Terrell bus. And that brings us to the superintendent's report. Dr. Mast.
Thank you. So for 1S and 2S, we voted on that at our prior meeting. 3S, I would like to make a motion for the Board of Education to approve the following field trip request. High school Italian teacher Sandra Crouton will take 40 students and 4 chaperones to the East Hanover AMC movie theater for a HD live performance of Madame Butterfly on November 13th. Students will develop the skills to effectively communicate with people from a variety of backgrounds and understand the importance of sharing our individual stories with others.
So moved. Is there a second? Second. Any question or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries.
4S, I would like the Board of Education to approve the receipt of the report presented at the October 15th meeting for our enrollment numbers.
So moved. Second. Any question or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries.
For 5S, I would like to move that the Board of Education acknowledges the receipt of district goals as submitted by the superintendent on September 20th.
So moved. Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Is there a second? Second. Mrs. Soriani, any question or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. You're abstaining? There's one abstention. You're neutral. Thank you. All, so the motion carries.
I'd like to move that the Board of Education acknowledges the receipt of the SSDS and HIB reports for the time period of January 1st through June 30th, 2019, as presented at the October 17th meeting.
So moved. Second. Thank you, Mr. Murray and Mrs. Winkler. Any question? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries.
And for 7S, the board did approve the harassment, intimidation, and bullying self-assessment for the 2018-2019. And 8S, the board approved the early screening inventory. That concludes my report. Personnel. So, to continue the personnel, I would like for the board to approve the superintendent's personnel report that was presented in exec.
So moved. Second. Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any questions? Any discussion? Mrs. Sarandaki, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Winkler?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff?
Yes.
Mrs. Brody?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Soriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Dr. Kulikowski?
Yes. Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the second public comment portion. So in accordance with the Scotch Plains Fairwood Public Schools Bylaw 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments, a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing the superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, the speakers may address other matters. When you approach the podium, please state your name and address and the town in which you reside. Seeing no one, we'll close that portion. And move on to the business functions. Mrs. Saragaki?
Yes, I'd like to group these if there's no objection.
Go right ahead.
1BUS, I'd like the board to approve the superintendent's recommendations for staff training reimbursements on the reports dated October 29th, 2019. 2 BUS, I'd like the board to acknowledge receipt of disbursement listings for the month of September 2019. 3 BUS, I'd like the board to acknowledge receipt of the district school security and fire drill reports for the month of September 2019. 4 BUS, I'd like the board to approve Cambridge School as a related service vendor in the amount of $30,000 for the 2019-20 school year. 5 BUS was approved on October 17th, as well as 6 BUS, as well as 7 BUS. 8 BUS, I'd like the board to approve the 2019-2020 non-public school technology initiative program agreements for the following schools: Union Catholic, St. Bartholomew Academy, Christopher Academy, Scotch Plains Baptist Christian Day School, Jewish Community Center, and Wonder Years Academy. 9 BUS, I'd like the board to acknowledge receipt of the board secretary report, the treasurer's school fund report, and budget adjustments for the period ending September 30th, 2019. 10 BUS, I'd like the board to approve the bills on the bill list provided for the period September 21st through October 25th, 2019, in the amount of $4,722,468.89. 11 BUS was approved on October 17. 12 BUS, I'd like the Board of Education to approve the purchase of a 2021 model year 54 passenger school bus from Hoover Truck and Bus Centers in the amount of $101,101.57. This money will come from 2018-19 excess extraordinary aid. This replaces a school bus that is currently 15 years old, and the bus that we have is starting to have mechanical problems, and hopefully we'll get this new bus in before the other bus has anything expensive go wrong with it. The state does require that we only use school buses for 15 years. We're not permitted, whether they're in good condition or not, to use them beyond that period of time. So, 13 BUS was approved on October 17. 14 BUS, I'd like the board to approve a resolution with Union County Ed Services Commission for public schools CST services contract agreement. This covers some services that we had not approved earlier and provides the cost of these services. And I think that's everything for all business.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any question or comment about those items Mrs. Saradaki is just putting forward?
I just have one question for the Union County Ed Services. Is it similar to what it was previously?
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Bauer. Any other question or comment?
Well, what's also nice about that contract is that we can call them when we need to. We don't need to call them if we don't want to. So it's a backup for our child study teams.
We have a motion for the business. And her questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Saradaki. And that brings us to board policies. No? Yes, board policies? Any new board business? Other board business, any requests to attend workshops or workshop reports?
Well, I'd just like to say that the school board workshop last week, I thought had a lot of great sessions that I think many of us were able to attend. So we'll put all those to good use, I'm sure.
I concur with that. I went to some really interesting sessions, so looking forward to sharing that information.
Thank you for those reports. Next, we have approval of the minutes second meeting of the month. So I'm asking for a motion to approve the agenda of meeting minutes from September 12th, open up the meeting and exec, September 21 for the board self-assessment, and September 24th, both the regular public meeting and the exec session. Second, thank you. Mrs. Brody, second, Mrs. Soriani. Any question or discussion?
I need to abstain from the September 12th minutes, but the executive session on the open meeting.
I agree, 24th as well.
And the February 1st. Amy Dillon for the 12th, for the 21st, and Evan for the 24th.
And I'll need to abstain from all September meetings because I wasn't here.
And I don't remember if I've given this advice to this board before or not, because I've said this so many times, but I will say it again. Board members who regularly throughout the state can take the approach of abstaining from approving the meeting minutes of meetings they didn't attend. We're not legally or ethically required to do so. It is a ministerial act. You don't have to have personal knowledge of the minutes in order to approve them, just to let you know.
Thank you, Mrs. Sebastian. So we had our abstaining, and we had our motion and second. Any other discussion? Then, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as we just discussed? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And this brings us to our third open public comment in accordance with the Scotch Plains Family Public Schools Bylaw 0164 and 0165. The meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments. Maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. When you come to the podium, please state your name, your address, and the town in which you reside. Seeing no one, and literally hearing crickets. Any remarks for the good of the order?
I attended a band festival at East Brunswick High School this Saturday, and I was surprised, not by how wonderful our band performed, but I was a member of the East Brunswick High School Marching Band, and it was huge in my day. And Scotch Plains Family Band was so much bigger. I'm not going to say better, but it was a really exciting performance. It was raining. There were still Raider parents cheering on the band, and it was just fun for me to go back to my alma mater, but it was even more satisfying to see how well our band did.
Thank you, Dr. Mass. It sounds very good. Sorry I wasn't there.
And with Dr. Clancy not here, I'll pick up the sports updates. Just want to, congratulate the varsity football team. They're now 4-4, so they're 500 on the season, which is a lot better than they've been in the past. And they take on Colonia on Saturday. I believe it's a 2:00 game home, the last home game. So I think we heard tonight gymnastics has upcoming this weekend.
Yes.
And then there's field hockey. Girls field hockey is also got that. We have good soccer conference, JV conference, sharing stuff going on, I think, with Westwood.
Yes.
So a lot of good stuff happening on the athletic field as well as, with the band.
The athletic teams are doing exceptionally well this season.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Anyone else? Any other comments? No other comments. Our next scheduled meeting is Thursday, November 14th for an open agenda meeting. And then Thursday, November 21st for a regular public meeting. And then the final one for 2019 will be Thursday, December 19th. There being no other comments, I'd like to have a motion for adjournment. Thank you, Mrs. Winkler. Thank you, Mr. Murray. I know no one's going to have a question about that. So all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.